Welcome back to the Traders Network show as we conclude our coverage for Humanity 2.0. I'm Matt Bird, broadcasting worldwide from Rome, Italy, from the
Pontifical Oriental Institute.
And my next and last guest is a man who's responsible for the last 2 days' festivities, Matthew Harvey Sanders. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
So, Matt, you're the co-founder of Humanity 2.0 and co-creator. You are also the founder of Longbeard.
I am.
And they actually go hand in hand because Longbeard and what you do at Longbeard for impact, both for the Vatican and the peripheral, nonprofit organizations, kind of put you in a position where you to build a launching pad like Humanity 2.0.
Yeah, I mean, very much. I think it was, a privilege to be able to come to Rome and to work with the Catholic Church in the Vatican. That kind of exposed me to a lot of problems I hadn't thought about before, like getting people from different sectors, like the public and the private, and even the faith sectors, which is, I found, I realize now has been very much ignored when it comes to impact in many ways. Getting them all together and to realize the possibilities for advancing human progress that can be found by facilitating more collaboration between those parties.
So, we had a chance to interview a lot of people. You did a bunch of interviews. We've been interviewing for the last 2 days. Got coverage from every angle from some amazing individuals, from Dell to Oxford to MIT to Inc. and to Forbes and Google, and the list goes on and on and on and on. How did you pull it all together? I mean, this was an undertaking, and it's not like it was, you're doing a rock concert. This was a high impact audience, curated specifically for this event, and you got some amazing people to show up. Everything was top notch.
Well, thanks, Matt. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, as to why people came, I mean, we were even surprised.
Yeah.
We sent out, around 400 invitations, and we were told to expect about 5% of people would confirm, and it was 40%. So, and that's one of the reasons why our event was over capacity, which is a high-class problem. But I think it speaks that people right now are starting to realize that humanity's kind of at a crossroads. We're another one of those points where we can kind of go right or left, and I think the environmental crisis is one such example of that, where it's kind of forcing humanity to think collectively and to think as a tribe, one tribe, which is the human tribe, because the challenge is that big, and the only way to tackle it and overcome it is if human beings come together. And so I think because we're faced with this enormous challenge, that we're all very open to new ideas and new methods of collaboration. And I think that's one of the reasons why these diverse actors came together, is to explore if Humanity 2.0 could be one of those actors.
In my experience, and I've done a lot of work with the UN and the EU Parliament and Trade Department and stuff over the years, one of the things I think you did exceptionally well was the collaboration with the Vatican. It made this an experiential advocacy event, if you will. And it separates it from all the other stuff out there that is on their own or isolated, because the power that's behind all of this it was like gravity. It was pretty amazing, and in the event environment that you put together and the experience that you formed for everybody, I think is something that not a single person will ever forget. I mean, I can tell you, certainly for me, it was a special thing, and I'm looking forward to the next one. But I think you put together a right mix of experiential content and influencers, and everybody's going home thinking about what the things that they can do to help. And you did a great job. Really great job. I have to give you credit for that.
Thanks, Matt. I mean, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to convene here at the Vatican is I think that we are faced with enormous challenges, but humanity has faced enormous challenges before, and we're still here. We've managed to overcome, and the Catholic Church is unlike any other institution. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the largest tangible network on the planet. Most people don't know that it manages 26% of healthcare facilities globally.
Is that right?
That's right. And most people don't know that it supports over 140,000 schools. And people forget it's the largest NGO on the planet. And that was actually something that shocked me as well when I realized it. We forget that we think of this institution as just a religion, but in fact, it's the largest impact organization in human history.
Yeah.
And so I think when you start looking at it like that, you start looking at it less as a religion, not to diminish that important part, but as a platform. And so I think that the church right now is starting to become more and more aware of these problems, and they're recognizing they have to do something about it, and they're recognizing that they do have a platform at humanity's disposal. What they need is ideas about how to leverage it properly to serve human interests. And that's one of the reasons why we convened here, because we convened people from emerging tech, from high-level academia, is to kind of explore how we could work together to propose new models for the church to leverage its platform to accelerate human progress.
I mean, it's a true public-private partnership format. I mean, it's terrific, and I give you credit for that again. I mean, it's just substantial. So, the event's over. You're looking back. What were some of your favorite outtakes from yesterday?
Well, I mean, there was one panel, the business leaders panel in particular, that I remember, mainly because it was quite feisty. I mean, they were going back and forth. There was these ideas of, one of the gentlemen on the panel was saying that we need to have ethical standards, common ethical standards, and another representative of another company saying no, that's not really possible. And so I think that. Yeah. Listen, we weren't expecting there to be any resolutions, obviously, on these issues, but I think that the conversation is very important, and I don't think a lot of the companies get many opportunities to discuss things like ethical frameworks very often. And I think that there was a great eagerness to continue that conversation, and unfortunately, when you're at a forum, you have to end the conversation. But the idea was to kind of start a conversation that could carry on into the breaks, and then hopefully will travel back to their company headquarters.
My takeaway was, and you have to look at it from a binary standpoint. My takeaway was, I think business ethics means different things to different companies and based on what they need.
Sure.
Some need climate control stabilization. We all need climate control stabilization, don't get me wrong. But when they look at what's preeminent for them, they have to look because when you look at it as a corporation, they're going to speak from a corporation standpoint, what's most important to them. Some could be corporate social responsibility, some could be climate control, others could be sustainability.
Right.
It's just, one company could be in the bottle making business, sustainability is recycling. The other is in the apparel business, and climate control is important to them.
Right.
The other could be an online marketplace, and corporate social responsibility is most important to them, and consumer advocacy. And
I think, listen, I mean, my feeling is that every company is created initially with a mission, a way of adding value to civilization. And I think part of the conversation that was really inspiring to me is going back to that and recognizing that your company, whether you like it or not, is having impact. Now, whether that impact is positive or negative is up to you. And I think for a long time there's been this narrative of, we're really focused on making profit. That's what kind of drives our company. And the mission thing is nice, but in the end of the day, we're really accountable to our shareholders, and what's important to them is maximizing profit. And that's the best way to run a business. And I think companies like Patagonia, they made a very important point, is if you put your employees and your customers first and their happiness and their well-being, that in the end, that actually doesn't distract or diminish your profitability. In fact, it enhances it. And I think there's a mythology that by focusing on advancing human beings' interests, that somehow will compete with for profit. And I think that's an illusion, and it's starting to actually fall away.
Yeah, I think it's basically a thing that kind of rings is that maybe not one vertical or one of these buckets is the end all be all. Maybe it is all of them together that form business ethics.
Right.
I think businesses are at different stages at different times.
Sure.
It's when you're fortunate enough to be highly lucrative or highly profitable, you can then focus in on customer first, and a lot of times, or if you're very efficient in other areas, and they're not first. It has to do with recycling and so forth. But maybe it's all.
Right.
It's not maybe not one thing.
Yeah, I think it is easier for a company that's successful to allocate $100 million to advancing some form of impact. At the same time, I think every company can say, is the product that I'm developing actually in the interest of the human family? Am I actually helping humanity, moving it forward in some way? Am I actually meeting a true human need? And I think that's an important process to go through, and I don't think that's necessarily has to be an ethical process. I think that's really a business viability process as well, right? You know, I may be able to convince or hoodwink people into putting a product to market that they think they will need, but in the end, they're going to find that they don't, and the business will fail. And so I think even from the investor perspective, I think these conversations about what do people really want and developing products that meet those needs is actually becoming more and more valuable.
What's another one of your favorites? By the way, that's as far as content goes. I actually loved that panel, and I think it was terrific. Tell me about the innovation panel. It was one of the things that you set up towards the end.
Sure.
You had some heavyweights on that panel. I mean, it was you had some thinkers. Like, how did it go?
I mean, I think it went well. I mean, really, what we're trying to do there is say that yes, the challenges that humanity is facing are enormous, but we have a lot of companies and products and solutions which are up to the challenge. And one of the roles I think the Vatican can kind of play is to compete around problems, but then to lift up solutions that can meet those challenges. And that's what really kind of excited me about the emerging tech panels. I thought it was overall very helpful. I think overall one of the insights was that emerging technology can be used for good or for bad. It's just really deliberately a company deciding whether it wants to use that technology to help humanity or harm it. And I mean, obviously the companies that we convened had made a conscious effort to advance the human condition in some way. And people like Frank from Burst IQ, what they want to do, digital medical records, is revolutionary and very much needed. And I think people are becoming more and more open to the idea of companies providing services like that, recognizing that governments have a lot of challenges that they're facing, and they're feeling overburdened. And so business, I think there's an open invitation for business to step up and to provide some of those services and help. And I think that's an evolutionary kind of process that I think has been a long time coming.
Interesting. How important in transitioning out, and I agree with that, absolutely. How important was it for the President of Malta to show up? Because I think it was a big moment. She captured everybody's attention. But how important was it for you?
She's been one of our biggest supporters, and she's in addition to being the President of Malta, she's just a remarkable woman. And like she said yesterday at the forum, she considers herself a global citizen. And this is one of the reasons why we deeply identify with her. I think the idea of identifying ourselves as, this is how we kind of define the difference between humanity 1.0 and 2.0. Humanity 1.0 being we're all individual tribes competing for scarce resources. This is inherent adversarial relationship. And I think given the global context and the challenges that we're facing, we can no longer think like that. And the president saying that she's a global citizen is, I think, a foreshadowing of where humanity needs to go. And so her being there was really significant because I think she is a new generation of politician, one that very much understands what's needed and is willing to step up and make a contribution. And that's what her foundation, which she's now committed to, is trying to do.
What are some of the biggest takeaways from the event that you're walking away with in hindsight, maybe that you not necessarily intended as an outcome, but you look back and go, wow, it's a pretty big outcome?
I think more than anything else, it was the positive feedback from the actual event itself. I mean, I know a lot of these people go to really world-class convenings like the World Economic Forum and such, and so in many ways we wondered, how would our event measure up? A very humble kind of gathering in many ways. But one thing I did realize is that people are really interested in talking about humanity and humanity's future. And exploring how the public, the private, and the faith sector can actually work in tandem. That's a conversation I think that they're very open to and that they want to see more of, and I think we need more forums to do it.
Well, I'm assuming you're going to provide those forums.
We're going to try our best.
Hey, speaking of which, when is the next one? When's the next reboot?
May 8th, 2020. And the theme of the next year's forum is how do we apply emerging technologies to tackle impediments to human flourishing, as we call them, or human challenges. To get, one of the things that we're kind of toying with right now is how could we go about putting together a technology stack. So technologies which represent different industries, which cover off some basic services that every human person would need. And one of the reasons why we think this is important is because there are still countries that are facing enormous difficulties, and unfortunately there is still conflict, And in those times of conflict, basic social services can start to lack. And so is there a way that we could have a number of different companies from different areas come in and cover off those basic social services in those times? But also thinking about a time when humanity is more of one tribe, and we're able to kind of travel more freely, and a world without borders. And in said world, we're going to need to think about ways of storing digital, IDs and traveling with our medical records and safely and securely, and which is why we're going to need new technologies.
You know, you and I had a chance to chat a little bit earlier today, and we've had a few chats. But you were mentioning some things about what's next and what's coming up next as far as your development cycles and stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives you've got going on right now?
Sure. So one I'm really excited about is the Humanity 2.0 Lab, and that lab's focus is looking at key developmental periods in human life and finding ways to optimize them to ensure human flourishing. The lab right now is focusing on the global maternal health crisis because, it's the most important developmental period, and right now we have a crisis. And if we're really serious about investing and ensuring the next generation flourishes, then we have to make sure we get this period right. Another project we're working on is related to business ethics. Is trying to form an institution which has kind of two functions. One is focused around education around ethics, but really what we're talking about here is just thinking better, right?
Yeah.
Reasoning better.
Yeah.
How do we build on the last 2,500 years of thinking and development in philosophical reasoning? How do we take all that learning and apply it to executives and help them think better and prevent things like the Volkswagen crisis from happening, right? An ethical breach which destroyed a very important company which had a global impact. One of the other projects we're working on, which is our primary research project called Project Vision, is really focused around zeroing humanity in on what are the most important problems we should be working on. One of the things I say a lot is I think humanity gets distracted by a lot of symptoms of a larger disease. And I think what's needed right now is we need to kind of be able to sort the symptoms from the disease if we're going to be serious about ensuring the next generation flourishes. That's interesting.
We've got just a few more minutes before we should probably shut down for the day. What kind of message you want to get out? I mean, you're becoming a pretty prolific guy, and you're doing your part. But you've got an algorithm, and you do it in your work. You see it in your work product. You see how passionate you are about everything. What's some key messages that you feel is important to get out? And it could be anything from how to conduct business, something as if you're an entrepreneur, to just take a second to think about something, or as an individual. I mean, we're syndicated on a number of different networks, and people of all shapes, sizes, creed, color, influence, private, public, will stumble across this interview, and this will be immortalized for a period of time. But what would you like to get out there?
Well, let me share an ancient piece of wisdom that's been very influential to me. It's a quote: "If you know where you're going, you're more likely to get there." And I think humanity, and I think to kind of dial it down, I think our economies right now, I don't think we have a clear sense of what we're trying to collectively build and achieve. And I think if we did have a clear sense of that, then we could work backwards and prioritize what are the things that are important, what things are not, what are symptoms, and what is the actual disease. So my message would be to think more long term, and to have the freedom and the courage to think big. Yeah, I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek, and I use the example a lot of Star Trek: The Next Generation. That show was hugely influential, and one of the things that I'd like to share is why, or the question I'd like to pose is why. And I think part of it is it showed a vision of humanity that made it. We'd evolved past racism. We'd evolved past greed. Nobody was wanting for basic necessities of life. And I think we need that. We need to know that humanity can make it. We need to know what kind of civilization that we want to achieve.
I too am a bit of a sci-fi geek, and looking at that as an analogy is a really good one. But I think what really pulls together that Gene Roddenberry environment is that everybody at that point is, if you look at the Vatican, it's very much like what you see here at the Vatican. Everyone's working towards a higher cause, safety, protection, stability. You working as a unit to erect like what you see here, these monuments, and creating a stable environment to project peace and solidarity and all the things that come with that. When you look at Star Trek: The Next Generation, this is the direction I think we're going to go with this. There is that unity because there's other worlds out there that everybody had to come together to figure out how to create stability, unity, and all those certain things. It took aliens from other planets to realize that we're one planet, not individual states, individual countries. And I'm smiling because I've thought about this before, and hopefully it doesn't take a landing of a spaceship to bring people together.
Well, you could say. I mean, I think what is kind of one of those kind of like existential like moments where you have to kind of think about your place in the universe is the fact that our planet in many ways is dying, right? And so I think we are at a moment where we're at a crossroads. We can come together and we can meet this challenge head on and we can overcome it. Or we cannot, and just accept the fact that we're just not going to be around, in 100 years.
You said something a minute ago, which is about the takeaway and what we should do, which is thinking long term and those sorts of things. It's such a difficult thing to get everybody on the same page, especially when you've got inequality and income and all these different things that are going on. And so this kind of comes back around to like humanity 2.0, which is what we can do is communicate through networks.
Right.
And I think what you've built is the beginning of a platform which is connecting organizations, which those organizations have a network of their own.
Right.
And then that message is proliferated through, and hopefully some mechanisms are put in place to start thinking long-term through those organizations. Right?
Sure. I mean, listen, before I went to the World Economic Forum in 2018, and this, really Humanity 2.0 was kind of birthed there, I was given a piece of advice by the Vatican. Focus on what we can do together, not what we can't. And that was really the message that I hope was clear at the forum, and I hope it's one that they take back. I understand institutions like the Vatican are perceived by many to be highly controversial, but listen, you can't dispute that they, to many people, are an incredibly important organization that have an enormous impact. Working with them doesn't require you to accept everything that they believe. It just requires you to be open to appreciating that you share common problems, and that there's a resolution to do something about them.
I look at this, it's interesting because I see a lot of similarities. You look at the Vatican and its history and its track record of adopting things, and just like any megalithic company, this is from my point of view, it takes time to validate whether there's a real market there or not. And you're seeing real market change. I mean, we saw this like with, I'm going to give it an example that everybody could probably relate with, the tablet industry. There was a time when Apple launched the iPad, which I have an iPad and a Mac, and I thought, I love Apple products. But there was a time that they were saying this is going to be the end of Microsoft. And it was just impossible. It's impossible. They own 95% of the market. What they were waiting for is for the market to mature before they rolled out something. And they rolled it out, and there's now market-wide adoption of it, and they were able to do what they needed to do to make sure that there was an efficient use of time, energy, and resources. I think the Vatican, this is like one of those industrial revolution points where we've got humanity as a whole at a crossroads, and the Vatican's going, maybe the market's maturing for us to get involved on technology and a few other things that we've sat back because it's been changing so fast. When do you put the stake in there? And I think you provided a good dial-up opportunity for not just the businesses, but for the Vatican and to facilitate those conversations.
Yeah, I think listen, it's important to acknowledge that the Vatican, the Catholic Church, is its area of specialty is on theology and philosophy. That's what it's really exceptional at. That's not to say that the church hasn't contributed a lot of other things in the realm of technology in the past, but today what we're really looking to from the church is philosophical and ethical and moral leadership. But the business community has a lot it can now offer to the church. The emerging technologies are what are shaping the future right now. And I think what people are afraid of is that these technologies are kind of a runaway train, and we're not really sure where they're leading us. And we're not really sure how to have a conversation about that. And I think the Catholic Church can do, because it's been doing it for so long, is to provide opportunities to have that conversation and to draw from its 2,000 years history, the philosophical and ethical insights that's been developing over that course of time to help facilitate a conversation, and what I hope is to make clear where these technologies should be taking us.
Well, you know what? I love that, and I want to end on that note, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I'd like to tell you, I'd like to do a special shout out to Sheridan. She was incredible. I don't think we could have done any of the stuff that we did today without her. And yesterday, you guys were great at supporting us and making sure that we had everything we needed. And we're looking forward to helping some of the things that you have coming up in the next, in the short term and the long term. Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap up for the day?
Thank you very much for what you guys have done. I mean, coming here, I know, not to mention the jet lag, but I think you guys took a leap of faith to come here and to work with us. So I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to work with you in the future. Me too.
So that being said, this is going to conclude our coverage of the 2019 Humanity 2.0. I'm Matt Bird here with Matthew Sanders as we wind down for the day, and hopefully we're going to go grab a steak after this. Is that right?
Let's do it. Dying for steak.
I am dying for food. I'd like to put a special thanks out to my crew, Celine and Nicole. They've been behind the camera and behind the scenes the entire time and been struggling and muscling through the long, grueling days. Special shout out to our team in New York, in LA, and in Florida. We're coming back with a lot of good content and good messaging. So to that end, good night, and we'll talk to you next time.
The 2019 Humanity 2.0 Forum is brought to you by Cisco Systems, CSR solutions that are accelerating global problem solving in ways that have never been attempted before, to Ulala, providing mobile blockchain solutions for the unbanked, and to Pledge Camp, the next generation of crowdfunding. A special thanks to Tonico in Vatican City for hosting our program. And lastly, special consideration to Burst IQ, a leader in healthcare and blockchain, to Crown Sterling, the leader in digital sovereignty and quantum encryption, to Dignity Health, delivering high quality and affordable healthcare for all. And lastly, to Falcon Ventures, as transformative as our entrepreneurs. And thank you, 1-800 Public Relations, for all your PR and media support. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.